The American whiskey aisle gets more confusing by the day, and that confusion is extremely profitable. Shelves are packed with bottles claiming heritage, craftsmanship, and authenticity, while quietly delivering whiskey that barely qualifies as more than flavored alcohol. Marketing departments learned long ago that most people do not taste critically. They recognize labels, they trust reputation, they assume higher prices signal higher quality, and that assumption is exactly what allows some of the most famous American whiskey brands to survive, while delivering liquids that would be unacceptable if poured blindly. Today, we are exposing 13 American whiskey brands that consistently fail to justify their popularity, pricing, or reputation. These are bottles that survive on nostalgia, branding, or deliberate ambiguity rather than flavor, structure, or honest production. And after that, we will reveal 7 American whiskeys that actually earn your money through transparency, integrity, and genuine quality. Number 1 will permanently change how you think about the value of American whiskey. And number 13 exists almost entirely because people stopped questioning it decades ago. Number 13, Seagram's 7 Crown, is not just a bad whiskey, it is barely whiskey at all. Introduced in 1934, immediately after Prohibition ended, this blended American whiskey became popular, not because it was good, but because it was available. For generations, Seagram's 7 Crown filled glasses when Americans did not know what whiskey was supposed to taste like. That legacy remains its strongest asset. Blended American whiskey allows producers to legally combine as little as 20% straight whiskey with neutral grain spirits, coloring, and flavoring. What you get is something that technically meets the definition while avoiding everything that makes whiskey interesting. The nose offers faint caramel and ethanol. The taste buds experience thin sweetness that evaporates almost instantly. The finish barely exists. At around $12 to $15, Seagram's 7 Crown is not offensive because it is cheap. It is offensive because it still pretends to be whiskey. It exists for people who want to order a mixed drink without tasting alcohol. As a sipping spirit, it fails completely. Number 12, Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey represents everything wrong with how American whiskey is consumed at scale. Fireball sells more cases than most legitimate whiskey brands combined, and it does so by being aggressively not whiskey. The base spirit is Canadian whiskey diluted, sweetened, and overwhelmed with artificial cinnamon flavoring until nothing resembling whiskey remains. The sugar content pushes it closer to liqueur than whiskey, and the alcohol content sits well below the 40% minimum required for straight American whiskey. The nose smells like candy. The palate tastes like liquid, cinnamon sugar. The finish burns briefly and disappears. At around $15 to $20, Fireball succeeds by removing any requirement for taste, curiosity, or appreciation. It is designed for shots taken quickly, where flavor is irrelevant. It is not whiskey. It is a flavored sugar delivery system that happens to contain alcohol. Number 11, Jack Daniel's Old No. 7, occupies a strange place in American whiskey culture. It is one of the most recognizable spirits brands on earth, and one of the most overrated. The black label, square bottle, and Tennessee heritage created a cultural icon. The liquid inside does not live up to that mythology. Jack Daniel's Old No. 7 undergoes the Lincoln County process, filtering the spirit through sugar maple charcoal before aging. This process removes harshness, but it also removes complexity. The nose offers banana, vanilla, and light caramel. The palate delivers sweetness without structure. The finish fades quickly, around $25 to $30. It costs more than many bourbons, delivering twice the depth. People pay for recognition, not quality. Jack Daniel's sells confidence, not craftsmanship. Number 10, Jim Beam White Label is the backbone of mass-market American whiskey and one of the weakest values on the shelf. Beam's history stretches back centuries, but history does not excuse mediocrity. Jim Beam White Label is produced at massive scale, aged briefly, bottled at 80 proof, and engineered to disappear in mixed drinks. The nose is thin, the taste is sweet and flat. The finish is nearly non-existent. At around $20, it appears affordable, but slightly more expensive bottles deliver dramatically more flavor and satisfaction. Jim Beam White Label survives because it is familiar, not because it is good. Number 9, Maker's Mark built its reputation on smoothness and accessibility. The red wax seal became iconic long before the whiskey. Earned critical respect. As a wheated bourbon, it removes rye spice in favor of sweetness, but in doing so sacrifices structure and depth. At around $35, $45, Maker's Mark competes with far more complex whiskeys. The nose offers caramel and vanilla. The palate is soft and sweet. The finish is short. It is pleasant but unchallenging. This is whiskey designed to avoid offense rather than reward attention. Number 8. Basil Hayden's is the most diluted expression of premium whiskey marketing. Bottled at 80 proof and priced around $45, it delivers one of the weakest concentrations of flavor in its category. The branding suggests refinement and sophistication. The liquid delivers restraint bordering on emptiness. The nose hints at spice that never arrives. The palate feels watered down. The finish disappears. Basil Hayden's exists for drinkers who want to feel premium without experiencing intensity. It is prestige without substance. Number 7. Templeton Rye arrived with a carefully constructed myth about Iowa farmers, prohibition recipes, and gangster connections. That story collapsed under legal scrutiny when the company admitted the whiskey was sourced from a large industrial distillery in Indiana. The mythology was fabricated. The pricing remained. At around $40 to $45, Templeton Rye charges a premium for sourced whiskey available elsewhere for much less. The flavor profile is sweet and approachable, but indistinct. You are paying for a story that was proven false. We are only halfway through the brands that should never earn your money. The next 6 bottles climb higher in price while leaning even harder on scarcity, ambiguity, and manufactured prestige. Number 6. Blanton's Original Single Barrel is the bottle that taught American whiskey drinkers to confuse difficulty of purchase with quality. When it was introduced in 1984, Blanton's was genuinely innovative. It was the first widely marketed single-barrel bourbon, and at the time it stood apart. That context no longer exists. Today, Blanton's survives on artificial scarcity and collector obsession rather than what it delivers in the glass. Retail pricing sits around $65 when bottles actually appear. Secondary pricing regularly doubles that number. The whiskey itself is aged roughly 6 to 8 years and bottled at 93 proof. The nose offers citrus peel, honey, and light oak. The palate delivers sweetness, mild spice, and a smooth texture. The finish is clean but short. This is competent bourbon. It is not exceptional bourbon, and it is certainly not bourbon worth chasing, hoarding, or paying inflated prices for. Blanton's has become a luxury object rather than a drinking whiskey, and that transformation has nothing to do with quality. Number 5. Whistle Pig Piggyback represents the blurred line between American whiskey and marketing opportunism. Although the brand markets itself as an American craft whiskey company rooted in Vermont imagery, much of its liquid has historically been sourced from Canada. Piggyback positions itself as a bold, modern rye, but the pricing tells a different story. At around $50, Piggyback competes with exceptional American ryes distilled domestically with full transparency. The flavor profile is spicy and sweet, but lacks depth relative to its price. Oak influence is limited, complexity is modest. What consumers are paying for is brand recognition and aggressive marketing rather than production cost or aging investment. Whistle Pig mastered the art of selling sourcing as craftsmanship, and Piggyback is the most obvious example. Number 4. Angel's Envy is finished whiskey marketed as refinement. The brand emphasizes elegance, wine barrel finishes, and luxury positioning. The result is whiskey that tastes polished but incomplete. Finishing can enhance whiskey when used carefully. It can also soften flaws. In this case, it does both. At around $50, Angel's Envy delivers sweetness, fruit, and a silky mouthfeel from its finishing casks. What it lacks is backbone. The underlying whiskey struggles to stand on its own. Oak, grain, and spice are secondary to confectionery notes. For casual drinkers, this is approachable. For anyone seeking real whiskey character, it feels diluted by design. Number 3. Weller Special Reserve is perhaps the most inflated bottle in American whiskey culture. Once a readily available wheated bourbon priced under $25, it became collateral damage in the explosion of demand for anything associated with Pappy Van Winkle. The liquid never changed. The perception did. At 90 proof and aged roughly 6 to 7 years, Weller Special Reserve offers light sweetness, vanilla, and soft oak. The palate is thin. The finish is short. At the exaggerated prices, it becomes indefensible. This whiskey did not improve because people want it more. It simply became harder to find. Scarcity replaced evaluation. Number 2. Hudson Baby Bourbon is a case study in how craft branding can excuse underaged whiskey. Marketed as artisanal, small batch, and local, this bourbon is typically aged for less than 4 years, sometimes significantly less. The small barrels used accelerate extraction but do not replicate maturity. At around $50, Hudson Baby Bourbon delivers intense oak, sharp grain, and imbalance. The nose can be aggressive. The palate feels rushed. The finish is dominated by wood tannin rather than integration. This is whiskey sold before it is ready, priced as if patience were applied when it was not. Number 1, Crown Royal may surprise some, but its inclusion is necessary. While technically a Canadian whiskey, it dominates American shelves and American consumption. Its popularity has convinced generations that smoothness equals quality. What it actually delivers is neutrality. Crown Royal is blended, lightly flavored, and engineered to be unobtrusive. The nose is mild, the palate is soft, the finish disappears. At around $30, it offers little reason to choose it over properly aged, higher-proof American whiskeys delivering real character. Crown Royal succeeds because it asks nothing of the drinker, and whiskey that asks nothing gives nothing back. Those are the 13 American whiskey brands that should never earn your money if flavor, value, and honesty matter. Now we move to the 7 bottles that quietly expose just how unnecessary most premium pricing really is. Number 7 on the list of whiskeys you should drink, Evan Williams Bottled in Bond, is one of the greatest values in American spirits. At around $20, it delivers 100-proof whiskey aged at least 4 years under strict federal supervision. No mystery, no mythology, just structure, balance, and honesty. The nose offers caramel, brown sugar, and toasted oak. The palate delivers spice, vanilla, and grain with authority. The finish is warm and satisfying. This bottle humiliates many premium brands by doing exactly what whiskey is supposed to do without asking for attention. Number 6, Old Forester 100 Proof continues the theme of transparency and restraint. Produced by Brown-Forman, this whiskey delivers richness, spice, and balance at around $25. It works in cocktails. It rewards sipping. It does not pretend to be rare or luxurious. It simply performs. We are approaching the bottles that completely dismantle the premium whiskey illusion. The final 5 will make it very difficult to justify overpaying ever again. Number 5 on the list of American whiskeys you should drink, Wild Turkey 101, is proof that honesty still exists in a category increasingly dominated by image. Bottled at 101 proof and typically selling for around $25, this whiskey delivers more flavor, structure, and identity than many bottles twice its price. Wild Turkey 101 does not chase trends. It does not soften itself to appeal to everyone. It embraces what whiskey is supposed to be. The nose opens with bold caramel, charred oak, vanilla, and baking spice. The palate is full and assertive, delivering toffee sweetness, cinnamon, clove, and a deep oak backbone. The higher proof carries flavor rather than heat, providing weight and persistence that diluted premium bottles simply cannot replicate. The finish is long, warming, and unmistakably whiskey. This is a bottle that exposes how much character is lost when brands prioritize smoothness over substance. Number 4, Old Granddad Bottled in Bond is one of the most underestimated whiskeys in America. Produced by Beam Suntory and bottled under strict bottled in bond regulations, this whiskey offers high-rise spice, structure, and intensity for around $25. It is not designed to be gentle. It is designed to be expressive. The nose delivers sharp rye spice, citrus peel, and caramel. The palate brings black pepper, cinnamon, vanilla, and toasted grain with energy and precision. The finish lingers with warmth and spice, reminding you that whiskey is meant to be experienced, not merely tolerated. In blind tastings, Old Granddad Bottled in Bond regularly outperforms bottles that rely on luxury positioning rather than liquid quality. Its plain label hides a whiskey that refuses to compromise. Number 3, Four Roses Single Barrel represents what happens when a distillery allows its best work to reach consumers without dilution or distraction. Bottled at 100 proof and typically aged between 7 and 9 years, this whiskey showcases complexity rarely found at its price point of around $45. The nose offers floral notes, ripe fruit, baking spice, and oak in layered balance. The palate delivers honey, rye spice, vanilla, and a firm oak structure that holds everything together. The finish is long and evolving, rewarding attention and patience. This is whiskey that improves the longer you sit with it. It does not rely on scarcity or hype. It relies on consistency and skill. Number 2, Russell's Reserve 10-Year is whiskey for drinkers who understand that time is the most expensive ingredient. Carrying a real 10-year age statement and priced around $40, this bottle delivers maturity that many so-called luxury whiskeys never achieve. The nose opens with dark caramel, leather, toasted oak, and vanilla. The palate is balanced and restrained, offering mature sweetness, spice, and tannin without excess. The finish is dry, long, and contemplative. This is whiskey that tastes like patience. No finishes, no gimmicks, just 10 years of quiet work in a barrel. When consumers pay premium prices for whiskeys without age statements, bottles like this expose how unnecessary that gamble truly is. Now we arrive at number 1, the bottle that quietly dismantles nearly every argument used to justify overpriced American whiskey. The bottle that proves transparency, age, and proof matter more than image or scarcity. Number 1, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof is the whiskey that makes entire premium shelves look indefensible once you understand what it delivers. Produced by Heaven Hill and released multiple times a year, this uncut, non-chill filtered whiskey carries age statements typically ranging from 11 to 12 years. Proof levels vary by batch, often exceeding 120 proof, and despite all of this, it regularly sells for around $70. The nose is explosive. Dark caramel, molasses, oak char, vanilla, dried fruit, and baking spice surge from the glass. The palate delivers massive concentration without chaos. Sweetness, spice, oak, and alcohol are balanced through maturity rather than dilution. The finish is long, powerful, and constantly evolving. This is whiskey that demands attention and rewards it generously. What makes Elijah Craig Barrel Proof devastating to the competition is not just its flavor, it is its honesty. The age is stated, the proof is untouched, nothing is hidden. No water is added to chase smoothness, no finishes are used to distract, no mythology is required. You are paying for time, not marketing. When bottles costing $100 or more offer no age statements, no proof advantage, and no demonstrable superiority, this whiskey exposes the truth. Luxury pricing in American whiskey has become disconnected from production reality. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof reconnects that reality with brutal clarity. Once you understand what $70 can buy in this bottle, the entire whiskey aisle changes. Scarcity loses its power. Packaging loses its influence. Stories lose their authority. You begin to evaluate whiskey for what it actually is, rather than what it claims to be. By the time most people reach the end of the American whiskey aisle, they are no longer choosing whiskey. They are choosing reassurance. Reassurance that the bottle is recognizable. Reassurance that the price implies quality. Reassurance that they will not regret the purchase even if they never really enjoy it. That quiet anxiety is what the modern whiskey industry has learned to monetize with remarkable efficiency. The 13 whiskey brands you should never drink did not rise to dominance because they were the best. They rose because they were familiar, available, and aggressively marketed during periods when consumers were not asking hard questions. Seagram's 7 Crown thrived when Americans did not know what whiskey could taste like. Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey thrives by ensuring no one ever has to find out. Jack Daniel's Old No. 7 thrives on cultural saturation rather than liquid superiority. Jim Beam White Label survives because it is everywhere. Blanton's survives because it is hard to find. Weller Special Reserve survives because it is associated with something else entirely. None of these bottles are successful because they outperform their competitors in the glass. They are successful because they outperform them in perception. And perception, once established, is extremely difficult to dismantle. That is why so many drinkers spend years paying premium prices for whiskeys that quietly underdeliver while assuming the problem is their own palate. The uncomfortable truth is that American whiskey is not mysterious. The regulations are public. The production methods are well understood. New charred oak barrels, grain-forward mash bills, aging, proof, and time do not lie. What lies is packaging. What lies is omission. What lies is the implication that smoothness is the same thing as quality. When whiskey is filtered, diluted, sweetened, or rushed to market, the results are predictable. Short finishes, shallow flavor. Pleasant but forgettable experiences that never reward attention. These bottles are not designed to be contemplated. They are designed to be consumed without complaint. And that design philosophy dominates far more of the American whiskey market than most people realize. The 7 whiskeys you should drink expose that reality with uncomfortable clarity. They succeed not because they are rare, but because they are honest. Evan Williams, Bottled in Bond, succeeds because it tells you exactly what it is and delivers on that promise. Old Forester 100 Proof succeeds because it refuses to dilute its identity. Wild Turkey 101 succeeds because it understands that flavor matters more than smoothness. Old Grandad, Bottled in Bond, succeeds because it embraces spice rather than hiding it. Four Roses, Single Barrel succeeds because it allows complexity to exist with without compromise. Russell's Reserve 10-year succeeds because it respects time, and Elijah Craig Barrel Proof succeeds because it refuses to pretend that whiskey needs help beyond patience and integrity. These bottles do not ask for trust. They earn it. They do not rely on secondary markets, velvet-lined boxes, or scarcity theater. They rely on production decisions that favor the drinker rather than the spreadsheet, and that difference becomes obvious the moment you compare them honestly against their overpriced counterparts. American whiskey did not become great because of marketing. It became great because distillers learned often through failure how to balance grain, wood, time, and proof. That knowledge still exists. It simply gets buried beneath louder narratives. Once you strip those narratives away, what remains is clarity. The next time you are tempted to chase a bottle because it is hard to find, pause and ask a simple question. What am I paying for that cannot be found in something readily available? In most cases, the answer will not involve flavor, age, or quality. It will involve reputation. And reputation is the most expensive ingredient in whiskey. You do not need to spend more to drink better. You need to spend more deliberately. You need to understand that the best American whiskey values often sit quietly on lower shelves, wearing plain labels, waiting for drinkers who care more about what is in the glass than what is on the bottle. Once you make that shift, the entire category opens up. Exploration becomes enjoyable rather than exhausting. Choice becomes logical rather than intimidating. And whiskey returns to what it was always meant to be, a well-made American spirit, meant to be tasted, understood, and appreciated without ceremony or pretense. The most dangerous lie in American whiskey is not that expensive means better. It is that you need permission to trust your own palate. You do not. Taste carefully, compare honestly, and remember that the best whiskey experiences are rarely the loudest ones. When you find bottles that deliver flavor, integrity, and value without demanding attention, keep them close. Not because they are rare, but because they remind you why American whiskey earned its reputation in the first place. Everything else is just noise.